So what is social anxiety? Think about it for yourself for a second. Like, how would you answer this? What would you kind of highlight? People will ask me a lot. I'll ask them, what do you think? People might highlight sort of different components of it. Generally, the experience of it. I think it's really important to ask this question and to figure out the answer for you, because we need to identify what a problem is before we can really solve it. Like, it's one of the fundamentals of problem solving. The better you can identify it, this is the problem, the far more easily you'll be able to see, this is how I change that. This is what I need to do. So I think that's really important. And talk to you about my particular kind of definition or answer to this. My name's Thomas Smithyman, PhD. I'm a clinical psychologist. I specialize in social anxiety. So thanks for watching this video. I hope that you'll like it. So my answer, what is social anxiety? I think of it as an innate protection system that kicks in order to help us prevent experiencing a social injury. So it's innate, it is built into us. We're born with this, we're not choosing to engage it. It's kicking in on its own. Oftentimes our rational brain says there's no danger. I don't want to be protected. I'm okay, I'm just making a speech or I'm talking to someone that I like. But there's a reason for some reason our emotional brains are picturing something that can go wrong. They're sensing, hey, there's potential danger here. And oftentimes against our will, this protection system will kick in, take over, and make us avoid or shut us down. So everything that it does, all the various components that we can break social anxiety down into, if you look at it, you can see that they're all self-protection. They're all different methods of having us focus on dangers, potential dangers, or ways to protect from danger. And that's why I think, to me, this is the best way of understanding it. It is an innate system that kicks in and either compels us to engage in self-protection behaviors, or it just naturally, it forces us to do these things, basically. So, and it's trying to prevent a social injury. We can get into more of what that is in the future, but it's trying to prevent us being rejected or attacked or losing status or reputation, relationships that matter to us. So let's look, though, maybe a little bit at each of the components, sort of the major experiential components of social anxiety. And you can see that these are self-protective. So one of the first ones, body sensations. So you might notice heart rate goes up, heart starts pounding, or your adrenaline starts to go through the body, making you shake a little bit, or you might find it hard to breathe as deeply. You find you engaging in shallow breaths. What this is happening here is you're getting a whole bunch of different physiological changes kick in, all of which are giving you energy that's focused on survival, escape, protection. Your attention also goes in ways that are self-protective. So you probably noticed this. It's one of the major components of social anxiety you'll look for, is your attention, instead of being externalized onto the world, engaged in noticing what's happening, listening to things, your attention becomes self-focused. So you become self-conscious, right? That's what term people use, self-conscious. It means your attention, that flashlight, instead of being external, it's gone on the self. And you'll notice it's self-protective because your attention's on what? Like, how much of my hand shaking can people tell? Or it might be focused on what are people thinking of me? Or am I currently living up to the ideal standards? Like, how am I doing? It's self-protective because we're thinking, I need to monitor myself and make sure that I'm doing okay, and if not, I need to do something about it. It's self-protective. Our thoughts become self-protective, so we'll be imagining all the different things that can go wrong, or we'll have these pretty exaggerated, unrealistic little fantasies of the social injuries that can occur, the ways that we could screw up, what might happen as a result, how we can solve it. That's going up into our thoughts to anticipate and prevent danger or social injuries from happening. That's self-protective too. It's trying to be. And then really obviously in behavior, it's probably the most obvious area. Look at the behavior that you engage in, most people engage in when socially anxious, and you'll see it's self-protective. So for example, like let's say the adrenaline comes through, you're aware of your shaky hands. Self-protective behavior might be, well, put it in the pockets, hide them behind me, or grab it or clench it. Eye contact wise, looking down self-protectively because it avoids eye contact and the threat of that. Very common one, filtering. So instead of just saying whatever comes to mind, because it would be dangerous to just be me, what if that goes wrong? Instead, we're self-protective by adding a filter. So everything we say, we think it goes through the filter. Is that appropriate? Is that cool? Is it not funny enough? Is it not this enough? And only certain things then get filtered out. Very self-protective, right? And I guess the most kind of extreme version, which you'll see all the time, is just avoiding doing things. Like not even going into the social situation, staying home, or avoiding certain people once you get there. All of this very self-protective. So these are sort of individual components in the social anxiety, but you'll see they're all tied together because these are all ways of protecting ourselves from potential social injury. And I'll get more into this in a different time, but it's innate, it's built in. You can feel when you're in a different mood, you don't want to do these things. If you are hanging out with people that you're close to, who you feel very accepted by, friends, that kind of stuff, you notice you won't do all these things, or certainly not all of them, because you don't have that system kicking in that's trying to compel you to safety. So that is social anxiety. The problem, of course, with all this stuff is there's a reason why we have this system. There's a reason why it does what it does. It made sense in our evolutionary history in the past. It doesn't make sense in the modern world for the most part. It's very, very oversensitive for the modern world. So, I mean, to the point where people are often just as afraid of their social anxiety as they are of whatever else might go wrong. So it itself is anxiety provoking. I'm anxious about my social anxiety, which of course just keeps escalating it. This stuff doesn't work. The protective stuff, the innate automatic submission that we do, the involuntary submission, not really helpful in the modern world because it prevents us from reaching the goals that we have and doing the things you want to in life. And I mean, especially right here, I mean, self-protection, designed to protect us from injury. Instead, modern world, self-protection actually prevents us from connecting, which is what we want. So self-protection prevents connection. It's meant to stop us from getting injured, but modern world prevents us from connecting with people. All those things I mentioned, going up in the head, the self-focused attention, the behavioral protections, the energy and the stuff to run out of there, all that stuff prevents us from actually showing our true self authentically, being able to engage, pay attention, and meet people. So treatment-wise, like I specialize in treating this, what we all of us are trying to do in order to treat this. There's a whole bunch of steps to it, but we're trying to look for those different self-protection strategies, and we need to try to turn these off. So kind of one at a time, we need to cut these off because they're counterproductive. They cut off connection. They cause far more problems than they solve. They lead to very awkward social interactions. So to actually connect, we need those self-protection strategies dropped. So that might be changing attention. It might be working on thoughts. It might be dropping the filtering, deliberately looking up, looking around, saying more instead of avoiding situations, going towards situations, pursuing people that we might have interest in. So what we're trying to do is turn off the components of this piece by piece, get rid of all those protections, and then we go another step deeper, which is we need to figure out how to stop the system kicking in the first place. And to do that, we've really got to teach it. We need to teach our emotional brain that the social world in our present age is not dangerous. It's too sensitive. We need to teach it not to be so sensitive. So we need to get at this underlying, what I call the central social anxiety equation. And it's sort of a series of beliefs that start with like, I am flawed, and it ends with rejection is intolerable. We need to get at that equation. I mean, to kind of break those beliefs down and teach this part of the brain, it's not dangerous. You don't need to kick in at all. And kind of once that happens, once we really, pry off those self-protections and we teach it, it's safe, you can do this, then we no longer have social anxiety because there's no reason for it even to kick in. So, hope you found that interesting, helpful. Feel free to go to my website, thomassmithyman.com, so just my name.com, and feel free to write me any more questions you have. Okay, thanks.